When are you going to come across the pond? Come and visit us. Be nice to show you around. I show you everywhere. Maybe Mrs. Brown and Madea do Europe.
Ooh, I love that.
I can't wait to show you my beloved Ireland.
Oh, you had me till you start talking about Iran, baby. I can't go to Iran.
Ireland?
I know, it's too much sand in Iran to me.
Fuck's sake. Whatever.
You know what? Tyler Perry, Madea, Mrs. Brown, Joe fans. This video is kind of a combination where I'm going to talk about or pitch an idea. You know, this is just my loose attempt to, if you will, dedicate a video solely to, hey, if anybody in Tyler Perry's camp sees this, pass it along to him. Now, and I believe the Variety interview he did about a week or so ago, prior to the release of the Netflix film, Madea Homecoming, which congrats to the cast and crew for getting it to #1. I think that I saw one of the cast post this morning on social media that as of right now, it is #3 worldwide. And I think it was #1 in the US this morning. I could be wrong, but either way, it's #3 worldwide. So it's doing numbers. Now, in the Variety interview I'm referencing, I did a video on it where he talked about possibly doing like a Joe Does Vegas. You know, Joe is a vulgar old man and, you know, he's wild, so Joe needs a movie at some point. And I believe he even pitched that idea after he had done the promo tour or after the theatrical release of a Madea family funeral. So that movie ended with one of the main characters with Mike Tyson going to Vegas. So it was like, wow, you know, Joe, maybe Heathrow, and Brian could go to Vegas or something. And I figured that based on the ending of this film where you had Mrs. Brown and Madea, Mrs. Brown kind of, you know, she kind of left the door open for a potential crossover. What do you say? Mrs. Brown and Madea do Europe? And Brendan O'Carroll mentioned in an interview how, you know, he hopes that maybe he's able to do a movie with Tyler again, you know, at some point in the future. So to be completely honest, I think that would be a great idea. Now, here's my pitch for it, you know. I don't think Joe should go to Europe. I think, honestly, one of the reasons, because I listened to a few reviews over the weekend, you know, other content creators and, you know, film critics. Well, I don't want to say others since, you know, I don't think of myself as a film critic. I barely do movie reviews. But they talked about, you know, the film and whatnot. And not, a lot of them really didn't go too hard because this is like, what, the 12th or 13th Madea film. You know what you're going to get by now. And it brought some laughs. But something that, you know, was a common criticism was the fact that it felt like at times the drama, you know, in between, like, you know, oh, the son. Well, no, honestly, Tim being gay didn't even feel like that much of drama. The Davi and Laura and Richard and Sylvia thing, that all felt kind of forced, where the story should have really been focused more on the laughs. And Mrs. Brown and Madea, you know, they really bounced off each other pretty well for the most part. It's just sometimes things just felt out of place. So it would have been interesting if it was just really focused more so on Mrs. Brown and Madea as opposed to like the whole, you know, Madea crew from Bam and Brown, Mr. Brown, that is. So maybe what should happen, and again, I'm just going to throw this out here. Maybe it's a situation where Madea accepts the invite. It's like, you know what? I'm tired of this. I'm tired of saying this small town. I can't do a good Madea impression, so don't sue me. You know, I really need to live it up. Maybe I should go visit Miss Brown on that farm. And, you know, bring some chocolates and whatnot. You know, just enjoy it. Get a change of scenery. And then she, like, you know, gets Joe to stay at the house by himself, which in her mind, she already knows Joe alone is a mistake in itself. All I could think about is Diary of a Mad Black Woman after Madea gets out and then Joe got that damn house party going on. So what if, you know, Joe decides, man, Ma gone across the ocean, you know, I'm about to get out of here too. So perhaps, you know, he's on house arrest, or, you know, Madea makes him stay home to take care of the place, or just something along those lines. But let's say him and Heathrow decide, you know, we got to go to Vegas. You know, we need to live it up a little. Maybe he sees a commercial or something like that. So he stays like the first night home, but then he sees on the TV, Vegas. Oh, look at them holes up there. You know, I need to go over there. So that's the setup. He just decides to go to Vegas. Maybe Brian comes over to check on his dad, that kind of thing. Whatever the setup is, I think it will be great with Madea overseas with Mrs. Brown. You got Joe and whoever you want to throw in the movie going to Vegas. Now, I think Joe and Heathrow would be great because, Tyler likes to talk to himself on screen like that. And then Brian, could come along if he wanted to, to make sure his dad's okay, because you kind of need somebody. I feel like, Brian would be the driver. I feel like, it's safe to say he would be the best driver in this scenario. And it would be like, father-son time in Vegas. What can go wrong, right? And then he just, Brian is like the stick in the mud, but maybe throughout the movie, Brian shows some of his father's traits, I don't know, because if I remember correctly, in Boo 2, it was established that, actually in Boo 1, right, that Brian wasn't married. Him and his wife got a divorce, so yeah, he's single, so you can imagine him getting on with some women. I don't know, I just feel like this would be that perfect film where it's really shining on Joe, and, him and Brian can kind of, I guess you could say, bond. And then with the Mrs. Brown thing, here's the thing, though. I don't know if these should be two separate. Well, no, I think they should be two separate movies, because you can have like a setup where, let's say, the Mrs. Brown thing happens first, and Madea, goes overseas, and then they do their thing. And then the Joe movie could start, like, continuity-wise, like, you can, like, recycle the scene from the Mrs. Brown movie and, set up how Medea's leaving and why she's not going to be around. And then she goes overseas, and then Joe goes on his own adventure. And perhaps it's one of those things like, what was that one god-awful house party movie, but I still like it? The fourth one, where Kid and Play weren't in it at all. I think it was Immature, right? The Marcus Houston music group. They were like the main characters of the movie. I think that, what was it? House Party 4, down to the last minute. So before the parents got home, they had to get like the car, the living room, everything clean before they got home. So they didn't have a second to spare. I feel like something like that should happen too, where Joe has to get back home before Madea does, because perhaps Madea comes home early because, I was thinking all them damn cows and all this stuff, goats and all, that's too much for me. Like, she has an awful time. It's a fun adventure, but it's like, no, I gotta get back to, the States. I gotta get out of here. So it's funny, like, Joe and Brian are just chilling in the living room when Madea gets back. So that trip was crazy as hell. What y'all been up to? Oh, nothing. So it's one of those things where they could have had a wacky adventure in Vegas, but they just act like nothing happened. It's like, imagine Joe and Brian have like a huge bonding moment where they really have a father-son bond. But, Joe's like, I love you, son, but hey, guess what? If you tell anybody I said that, I'll kill you. But why, Dad? Because what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And then they go home. And I think that'll be funny. I know it's like a weird pitch, but I think I just gave you like a skeleton. It's Tyler Perry, so I'm pretty confident he can fill in the blanks. And he's like, Jeremy, your whole channel is about reviewing and critiquing Tyler Perry stuff. You have faith in him? It's a freaking comedy. Look, if you watch my review for the Madea Homecoming, I didn't like score it based on like the same scale of a Sisters episode or the haves and the have-nots. I knew what I was getting into. Tyler made it clear to everybody. This is a movie strictly to get laughs and money because it's Madea. But yeah, it's like I enjoyed that film. Sure, the storyline could have been cleaned up a bit, but it's difficult for me to say how much of the film I looked at with unbiased eyes due to the fact that if you watched the farewell play, you knew the story beats, but how well did that story tell its own story in the film? I think the play was a little bit better, but overall, the movie gave me a good amount of laughs. So I feel like the same thing can be said about the Vegas one. I think my sister and I went to Maryland Live Casino back in like 2016. That was the only time I went to a casino. I just want to play the slot machines one more time. I don't know why, I just want to. But, hey, Tyler, if you need extras for that film in Vegas, I'd love to do it. Casino setting, play the slots. That would be awesome. But no, that's kind of my pitch. I know Tyler said that he is hopeful he's putting it out there for a Joe film. But since you have the whole Mrs. Brown thing and Madea possibly going to Europe, and I know Tyler said he would retire the character, but look, the movie on Netflix is going to do numbers. I don't think he would be against, hey, you know what? let's do another movie across this, in another continent. Hey, there you go. I just feel like it would be fun. And like I said, it could be 2 separate movies. Perhaps it could be 1 movie together. It just depends on how Tyler wants to do it, the cutaways to quote unquote Europe and quote unquote Vegas. Now, do I think the likes of Mr. Brown and Cora and Bam should be there? I don't know. Pick your poison. Some people, I feel like I'm one of the lesser tier Bam and, fans. 'Cause I felt like Mr. Brown wasn't fully utilized in the Homecoming movie. The moments he had were great, like the roof scene and the grill. But other than that, he was kind of just there. Whereas in the play, I feel like he really made more of an impact. In the movie, not so much. It was just slapstick. But then again, most of the movie is just chaos in itself. But let me know what you think. Do you think that Madea and Mrs. Brown should do a movie together in Ireland? I mean, hey, I'm not saying we have to continue on the story, but it would be cool to see what happened. Did Davi and Laura get married? How's Tim doing in law school? It's not a necessity, but it will be good. Even if it's just a throwaway line, I think that would be pretty cool. So do you think Mrs. Brown and Madea should do a movie set in Europe? Do you think there should be a Joe movie in Vegas? Do you think these movies should be separate, like 2 separate movies? Or should they be a combination and we're kind of like constantly switching from Europe to Vegas? And do you like the setup? I mean, if you have any ideas of how to set it up, feel free. Look, I just talk about this stuff for fun because I'm semi-passionate about it. And what characters would you like to use? Like I said, sometimes less is more. I felt like the Madea farewell play, that was a great who's who. Brown, Cora, Bam. It's like some of the biggest. I know some people are like, where's Hattie? But you had some of the biggest characters throughout the Madea storyline come back for the final play. Just like the funeral, you had everybody there because it was the final film. Then you had this one, well, you had a majority of the cast, but I feel like there was a bit too many. It's like, don't have all those characters back for fan service if you're not really going to do much with them, because let's be honest here, Madea is the main draw. That's not to say she's a solo artist, so to speak, but I feel like she does well on her own. But with that being said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Go ahead and take a moment to hit the thumbs up button to show you like the video. Follow me on social media. Links are in the description below. Hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon and select all. That way you don't miss out whenever I post content on the channel. And yet again, if you are someone who has ties to Tyler Perry Studio and it's like, hey Tyler, I know you said you were thinking about doing a Joe movie and maybe Madea goes to Europe. Well, this guy's video kind of gives a brief outlier of how you could do it. Pass it along. All right, guys, I'll talk to you later.